Hello, good afternoon. From Lisbon, welcome to this session with the speaker Inês Santos Costa, the Secretary of State of Environment. Inês will speak about circular economy. And let me introduce Sofia. Inês Santos Costa, it's the name of our speaker. The current governor holds a PhD in environment engineering, was a researcher in the area of sustainable in Portugal, was also a guest researcher at the Center for Industrial Ecology and at Yale University in the United States, precisely. The Secretary of State's intervention will take at its starting point the importance of the circular economy. Inês, do you want to start by making an introduction about this subject, the priorities of your public politics or public goals you have in hand? Inês?
I'm not sure if you can listen to me because I couldn't listen to your question. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I ask you, welcome first, and I ask you if you want to start by making an introduction about the public policy goals that you have in your hands now.
Thank you very much. Now I can listen. Thank you for the invitation to join this panel. I think that we need to start this discussion by recognizing that COVID pandemic exposed the faults in our economic model. The global and horizontal nature of value chains combined with the technological innovation allowed for cost reduction and increased efficiency. But it has also brought a shift away from the real economy, which has accentuated inequality, precipitated financial upheavals, increased global shocks, and made it less and less resilient. Right in the beginning of the pandemic, it was clear that we needed to be even more courageous and ambitious in realizing the objectives of the Green New Deal in order to not to fall back into old costumes. And the EU kept on with the action plans for the Green New Deal, including the Circular Economy Action Plan. And it kind of concluded in a great speech given by President von der Leyen on the renewed ambition in GHG emissions reduction. But at this point that we are now, there is still an underlying risk of this ambition submerging in the face of reality that pushes decision makers to fall into formulas no longer fit to address 21st century challenges. And the issue for me is not just reducing emissions. The EU, because the EU has proven, and many countries are now proving that it is possible to decouple GDP from emissions production. The main challenge moving on is transforming the model of production and consumption and understand that apart from efficiency, we must also strive for sufficiency and regeneration. So for more than half a century, and there is scientific evidence of this, the world's growth in wealth has been based on exploiting and using resources, much of them finite, and the production of waste and polluting emissions. And this progresses faster than we are able to achieve in terms of reduction with technological innovation. So developed countries like Portugal are responsible for most of the environmental impacts of their and transformation is fundamental to achieving results. And that's what we are doing right now. We believe that we need to move beyond policy in waste or energy and effectively enter the area of extraction, production, and even marketing of products. And that is where the principles of circular economy can make all the difference. We need to recognize that being sustainable is not an action between economy, society, and environment. We need to understand that to be sustainable is to have a socioeconomic system in balance with the system that surrounds it, which is the natural system, the biosphere. And today we are not in balance with that natural system. We have inequality, we have pollution, we have climate change, we have pandemics, we have poverty. So circular economy and the basic principles that are surround it to design for zero waste and zero pollution, to keep products and materials in use, to regenerate natural systems, to aim for well-being, must be at the center of this transformation and must be supported moving on to the next step in our development. I don't know if for an initial
Yes, let me talk about the consumers too. Is the circular economy really changing the consumer behavior? Do you believe that?
I think that in some ways it is, but it's only to a particular margin of the population. Why I say this is because there are evidence as well, the report by the Observatory for Conscious Consumption that points precisely that there is a difference between what the citizen, what the consumer is concerned about, for instance, climate change, what he doesn't want as a consumer, which is paying more, and what he or she does in their everyday life. So there is a dissonance between these two. So the consumer understands that there are that change is needed, but to himself change is a little bit harder to do. I don't focus much on the importance of being conscious, very clear and very logical, but know that it's something that not everyone is truly invested or gives enough time to think about it, because there will always be someone else who cares. However, I do not believe that the responsibility lies entirely on the consumers, because many times the transformation in moving towards a circular economy is not directly under the responsible of the consumer. The production needs to change. In many cases, as a consumer, the citizen only has a say in the single moment of the value chain, which is the time when he buys a product and when he discards. Now comes the hard part. Either there is little choice presented for them to make a conscious decision. I use often the example of toothbrushes. When you go to an aisle in the supermarket, all the options that are presented to you are like 90% made out of plastic. You do not have an option to choose from, which is more sustainable to choose from. So one thing is choice and choice availability for the consumer, and the other is the overload of information. You have literally hundreds of labels, that each one informing on a particular aspect, each one using different standards, different methodologies. It's locally made, it's recyclable, it's biodegradable, it's compostable, it's carbon neutral, it's fair trade, it's 100% natural. So we have to think about this relation and how we want this relation between consumer and producer to evolve. In the bottom line, the consumer is not there when the product is presented packed in 3 different materials. It's not the consumer's choice when the company decides to use virgin plastics instead of recycled plastics. But the consumer is there when the goal is to sell. So we need to find a better way to coordinate these three aspects of the consumer-producer relation.
Yes, in here, some producers ask us how to combine the circular economy and all of this Green Deal with the competitive economy. How can we combine that and be profit and have profit, of course?
Well, we have to think about all the externalities.
What do you advise?
Yes? I'm sorry.
What kind of advice?
What kind of advice I would give? Well, I think you have to make. I think one very important step is to make externalities transfer externalities to the price of the product. Meaning, often the challenge between a more sustainable product and a less sustainable product is to make it more evident in the price that you pay for that particular product. Many companies demand to have, for instance, fiscal incentives based on the environmental footprint of their product. But the reality is that the price that you pay is not necessarily integrating all the environmental externalities associated to making a particular product. And that's fairly much the issue, for instance, when you think about fossil fuel subsidies, etc., in which you do not factor in that price, the price or the cost of extracting something which is finite, or for instance, using a more intensive way of making agriculture, for example. So one step is to make evident the benefits associated to a particular product, and to internalize those externalities. I think that is something which is very hard to do. I'm not saying it is easy, it is hard. But when, for instance, the Commission talks about transferring taxes from labor to pollution, this is mainly what means one of the way of internalizing externalities, for example.
Okay, Inês, do you think the pandemic is stealing all the attention of citizens and businessmen for sustainability? Are stealing the attention?
Well, it is a public health emergency, and
Yes.
there is clearly and is clearly a topic demands our full attention. But it's I see this much as a sort of a nested doll, like those Russian dolls. You have the pandemic, but it's not because you have a pandemic that the other existential threats cease to exist. So if you see the pandemic as an effect or a consequence of a particular way of doing and making, and a result of our model of operating within a natural system, then you see the interlinkages between pandemics such as COVID and issues such as biodiversity loss, climate change, etc. So it is a public health issue, but it's also an environmental health issue. And for instance, when you think about all the pollution caused by plastics, and now increased with PPE pollution, for example, the price of for instance, of fossil fuels coming down, making, for instance, virgin plastics much more cheaper to produce instead of using recycled plastics. So this is like a sort of a snowball that increases in size and can perhaps deliver, if we do not have our focus in the long term, we may lose a big deal. We may go back a few steps in relation to what our ambition was previous to the pandemic.
Do you believe because the pandemic we will walk backwards for years in sustainability?
We think that we need to be courageous, and we need to stand firm in the policies that the European Union is establishing. The Green New Deal, the Next Generation EU, President von der Leyen is very adamant in stating that 37% of Next Generation EU must be accomplished by implementing the Green New Deal objectives. We must not lose focus on using this financial overall to, in fact, transform our system of production and consumption. As I say many times, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Climate change and renewable energy, fighting climate change and renewable and improving on renewable energies are but 2 of those 17 goals. you have all the others that you need to also work on, and we cannot achieve one at the expense of failing on all the others. So it is important that this transformation is also focused on being the more systemic, on having a more systemic approach, being a sustainable, meaning that a sustainable world requires as well sustainable production and consumption.
Mm-hmm. And how the new European Union Recovery Fund can contribute to up the process of the circular economy? It's an opportunity, of course. How can we? How can the funds contribute to that?
How can the? I'm sorry.
How can the new European Union fund, recovery funds, contribute for that?
Oh, I mean, when the Next Generation EU is making very adamant that 37% is to achieve the objectives of the Green New Deal, I mean, we have a lot of plans that the European Commission did not stop presenting, even during when we were all in lockdown. For instance, the Circular Economy Action Plan, the renewed Circular Economy Action Plan, was presented in March. The Farm to Fork strategy was also presented. The biodiversity strategy was also presented. So we must make those plans a reality. And so this funding must be put to good use in terms of achieving those objectives. We were talking about plastics previously. I think moving towards reusable packaging, all the necessary efforts that we need to transform the way we produce and consume must be put into good use, into demonstrating and to making it happen on the ground with the companies, helping them transforming their business models in order to be more aligned with the needed equilibrium we need to achieve between social well-being, economic prosperity, and our biophysical limits of our natural system.
We are talking about the Europe, of course, but talking a little about the companies, the Portuguese companies are taking the right steps.
Are the Portuguese companies taking the right steps? I think that we have a very good ecosystem in Portugal that we need to perhaps make more dynamic and more strong in the sense. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself well in English, but what I think is that we have a good ecosystem between traditional industries, for instance, textiles, footwear, even metalworks. We have a good in the knowledge in those areas, in those sections, in maintenance, for example, in remanufacturing. And we have, at the same time, a very good ecosystem for startups, for new competences, for blockchain, new technologies, new innovations. And I think that if we are able to bridge the two in order to make that bridge address challenges, such as challenges in recycling, in remanufacturing, in reusing, if we are able to bridge those two worlds together, I think that Portugal could be in a very good position to deliver solutions for the circular economy much faster. And I'm confident that we will be able to do that in the coming years as the rollout of the financial of the funds appears. And also we have a very good environmental funding program which addresses these particular challenges every year. We believe we will continue, of course, to make sure that we are ready to support that transition and that bridging between these two competences, these two sectors.
Inês, and can we say that the digital transformation and 4.0 industry will be decisive in
I believe so.
the
One
industry
of
and
the areas,
the services.
yeah,
Yes.
I believe so. Yes, because well, at two levels. At one level, the what we call the essential services, which was very much evident during the pandemic, where the environmental essential services, so water, sanitation, waste services, they need to be much more equipped in terms to step up their role in this transformation of our economic paradigm. There are companies which are very much in the forefront in the digitalization of their services and having digital solutions assisting into improving the environmental service, and others who are not. So we need to really move forward in that digitalization of these particular sectors to assist, for instance, a better resource management when it comes to waste, for example, or to assist in water efficiency or in byproduct valorization, for example. I think that there is a niche that we need to enforce, and I think there is a good way to make the application of IT and technology in this particular area. So that's one area which we are dealing with. And then we have IT and digital solutions assisting the transition and that bridging between producer and consumer, making it overall a transformation of this consumption and production system. I think I think blockchain can assist, for example, very well in reducing, for instance, instances of washing or planned obsolescence. I think there is there I think blockchain solutions can help in reducing the events related to greenwashing or planned obsolescence. I think preemptive manufacturing or preemptive how do you say it? Preemptive maintenance, for example, is important. Also, 3D printing. For instance, think of all the, for example, washing machines that's after 7 years they break because there is a part that no longer is manufactured. Imagine having the technologies that are able to print parts by them and are able to continue to have that machine working for a much longer time. Or even in the servitization of the washing machine. There are several examples in Europe of companies dedicating washing machine cycles instead of the washing machine itself. So I think technological, digital solutions in IT, they can all, if they are designed to this transition, and not just to make more efficient or to make it more cost friendly in order to have mass production of a particular product, because that we have rebound effects. If digital is put into use in that mind frame, on that framework, I think we have a very good marriage between these areas in order to further advance our economy towards carbon neutrality and circular economy.
We are near to the end of this talk, and my last question is, tell us about your big goal to 2021. As a governor, if you have to choose one big goal, what will be?
That's a tough question, actually. There are so many. I think one particular challenge that we face right now is with our urban waste management. I think that we took too long in making the necessary steps to transform our approach into waste management in Portugal. There were a lot of innovations going on in terms of incremental innovations, but not disruptive innovation. And I think with the new targets set by the European Commission, which are very ambitious in terms of bio-waste valorization, in terms of recycling targets for countries such as Portugal, which are in the periphery of the of Europe, which have that handicap in being further away from big centers of production, such as in the center of Europe. It's a particular challenge. And I think that is one area for 2021, which will certainly deserve our attention and our effort in moving forward as better as most with the most efficacy. I don't know if there's a death word in English, with being more and more efficacious for that year. I think that is a particular thing that we really want to work on and to move forward to.
Inês Santos Costa, thank you very much. You are excellent in this explanation. Thank you so much. The session will continue. Will continue, and I am now Bellini, the manager of government affairs from Google. He will tell us the company sustainable goals for coming years. So I invite Enrico Bellini to stay with us, to join with us. Are you there, Enrico? Yes. Hi. Good afternoon. Welcome. I can't listen to you. Enrico Bellini? I think you don't have the microphone, okay? Please, could you check? Yes? I don't listen to you. So, Enrico Bellini is the manager of government affairs from Google. Will tell us about the company's sustainability goals for the coming years. Let's try anticipate the future with Enrico Bellini, but we need some sound to ask with Enrico Bellini. Let's try again. Enrico, are you there? With sound, with microphone? Yes. Okay. We are trying to connect Enrico Bellini. Just waiting a little more. In the last talk, we have Inês Santos Costa. She's the Secretary of State of Environment, very concerned with the sustainability and the waste in the cities, of course, and she's very concerned too with the economy, the European economy, and how to balance the environment with the economy, with the sustainability, and with the profit, of course, because we need that for the economy. Inês Santos Costa was the last speaker in this talk. Let's try to have some conversation with Enrico Bellini, Manager of Government Affairs from Google. The big tech is with us. Let's try to listen to Enrico Bellini.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now, welcome.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Oh, fantastic.
Thanks for coming with us.
Thank you very much
Yes.
for the invitation.
Enrico, welcome to this session.
Thank you.
Okay,
I know
so
that
could
we
you
have...
tell us about the sustainable strategy of Google, please?
Yes, of course. So first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I know that we have very few moments because I know that there's the final panel about to start. But let me take just very few seconds to say how happy we are to be here also this year in supporting Euro consumers in this forum, which this year has this very important topic, sustainability as overarching topics of all the panels. For us, sustainability is not just a word; it's something that is embedded in the company, and we think actually that companies, and in particular associated with tools of science and technology, have the greatest responsibility and the greatest opportunity actually also to address the climate change and all the related sustainable development goals that more and more in the world are becoming more and more relevant, as we just heard from the Secretary of State before. Sustainability has long been one of our core priorities. Actually, we have been working on that for 22 years, and we had commitments for each decade, let's say, that we've been around. So the first decade of commitment, we already did we hope a good job, because in 2007 we became the first major company to be carbon neutral in our operations. But we didn't stop there, and we continued to invest. And actually, since 2017, we achieved 100% renewable energy, so matching our electric consumption with clean energy for our data centers and offices all around the world. And now, for the third decade, we are really actually trying to, as we say, aim for the next level, for a next level ambition. And that's why we announced the strategy, meaning to eliminate our entire carbon legacy. Therefore, also our emission before in 1998, 2000, from 1998 to 2007. So we aim to fully decarbonize the electric supply once for all. And to moving beyond offsets, so beyond just the cleaning up, but to decarbonize our electricity supply. We are committing to operating carbon-free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we are aiming to get there by 2030, and to do so in several ways. So first of all, working hand in hand with our supplier and manufacturers, but also trying to foster new ideas, like we are doing with a Google Impact Challenge on climate change. That is something that wants to gather around and collect all the game-changing ideas that could be in this field, and we committed 10 million euros to fund these bold ideas and to use that our ideas that will use technology to accelerate Europe's progress toward a greener and more resilient future, hopefully for all of us. But also, we're working with cities. We are now helping more than 500 cities worldwide to reduce their carbon footprint by 2030. And we are also working on a science-based reforestation program. So we have a pretty wide set of activities that we are doing, and we are optimistic that thanks to a combination of the right technologies, just think about what AI can do, artificial intelligence can do in this field. For instance, it helps us reduce 30% of the consumption of our data center. We think that with the right combination of tools, we can actually working together with partners, with no-profits, with organizations as Euroconsumer and as the Ecoproteste in Portugal, and all your other colleagues in the other countries. We can actually meet the challenges that we have in front of us and make the decade that we are living in the key decade to actually get results in the climate change environment. So we are proud to do our part, and we hope that we can move together closer to a carbon free world for all of us.